Coming back for season 2 of the Playboy Murders was really special to me, both as a host and an executive producer, because there were so many more stories within this world that we wanted to tell. Everything from really famous cases like the Dorothy Stratten case to cases I hadn't heard of, and even a few cases that involved people I knew. So it's really close to home, and it's a much deeper dive than even season 1. The Playboy Murders covers different murder cases that somehow involve someone who was within the Playboy world, whether it was a playmate, a Playboy bunny, somebody who had modeled for the magazine at some point or another. Most of the time, they're victims. Sometimes they're even the perpetrators. I think Playboy's always been a very mysterious, intriguing brand. It was that magazine that was always kept under the bed, so to speak. So people are always curious and want to know more about it. And it's a world where nothing is as it seems. So many people have been involved in the Playboy company throughout the years, and these are real people's stories, and there's such a variety of them and so many intriguing ones, and we're getting some of the most fascinating. One of the stories we're covering this season is the story of Dorothy Stratten. It's a very famous case, but we wanted to dive even deeper into it than ever before. So that was really intriguing to me. When we did season 1, there were so many of the stories that I hadn't heard of, and I was so intrigued by those stories. But I knew in season 2 we had to cover this one. Another case I was really interested in was the case of Paula Sladewksi. She tried out for a 50th anniversary Playmate. Playboy was doing a huge search. That was while I was living at the mansion. I met so many of the women who came through for that search, and we interviewed some of them for this episode as well. I think there's definitely a price to fame. I think there's a price to putting yourself out there online. There's a certain amount of criticism and lack of privacy, and I think it's important that everybody take extra precautions with their safety and how much of their personal life they're really willing to put out there. Playboy was such a huge company in its heyday. So many people came through working for the brand, modeling for the brand. So you have so many different personal stories that happened over the years. Unfortunately, there's some tragedies involved. And in a case like the Dorothy Stratten case, her very rapid rise to stardom triggered jealousy that ended up as the ultimate tragedy. My feelings on Playboy personally are very nuanced. Like, I had a lot of fun posing for the magazine and working at the studio, but the personal life part of my involvement wasn't so great. I just think it was a big company that involved so many different people. Some people had an amazing experience. Some people had an okay experience. Some people didn't have a great experience. And unfortunately, there were some tragedies involved as well. I love being a part of telling these stories, especially focusing more on the victims and on the women involved. I think it's really important to hear these stories, especially since some of them are unsolved, in case anybody has any information that they want to come forward with. But I also think, the whole point of sharing stories in general is we're all learning from one another. And if there's anything that can be learned as far as taking care of yourself or taking any extra precautions, I think it's all worth it. The stories from Playboy Murders Season 2 are also fascinating, just like they were in Season 1. Each case is very different. There's so many different types of people involved. I think everybody will find something relatable about one of the cases, but it's also fascinating too, because you're seeing people go through different careers and different lifestyles that many people haven't experienced. The Playboy Murders are haunting, intriguing, and sadly unforgettable. The Playboy Murders is a true crime show on ID. We cover several cases that involve people who were involved in the Playboy world, whether they were Playboy models, Playboy bunnies, Playmates. They're all incredibly intriguing, fascinating, some are unsolved, and you won't want to miss it. I love working with ID because they're incredibly detailed and sensitive in the way they tell these stories. I enjoy watching all their programming, so being able to work with ID on these stories was such an amazing opportunity, and I think we're telling the stories in a way that's sensitive but gives the facts and is very fascinating to watch. I love true stories. I love hearing human stories, and true crime has always fascinated me since I was a child. I feel like my executive producer hat and my on-camera hat for this project, it's kind of the same person. Like I'm always keeping in mind, like, what did we cover in the research? What do we want to be sensitive to? It's the same in front of the camera as behind the camera when I'm going over the research or looking at the finished product. I think for women or anyone who's looking for fame and fortune or to get into the entertainment industry, keep a good head on your shoulders, keep a few good friends you can trust around, and don't rush into anything, and read every contract. Every episode in this series is so different. Some make me really angry, some make me really sad, but I think altogether it just makes you realize that life is short and stay close to your loved ones. I'm very proud to tell these stories. I think these stories need to be shared, especially the unsolved ones, because hopefully new leads can come up.